Wait, so get ready for this deep dive. We're going deep into this world. It's ruled by this guy, Graf Paste. And get this, everything's like falling apart. And the sun, yeah, it's about to explode.
Yeah. It's a wild story.
It really is. And we're going to be focusing on this document, Tyrannenhand. But, we'll be pulling in some other stuff too, like 00 Paste and 01 Dosecru de Graf.
Yeah, those give some really interesting context.
They really do. It's like we're about to uncover what happens when, like, power and really bad decisions and this, like, desperate attempt to save everyone, it's just all colliding.
It's like a recipe for disaster, right?
Seriously. Okay, so you get the sense right away in Tyrannenhand.
Yeah.
It sets the scene for this, like, epic showdown, and the apocalypse is, like, right around the corner.
Yeah, it's palpable. But what I find really interesting is how Graf Pace, he's not just some, distant abstract threat. He's right there in the thick of it all. It's like he's almost reveling in the chaos he's created.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
00's Paste straight up calls him a tyrant. It describes him as, like, cruel and someone who thrives on, like, oppressing and exploiting people.
It's pretty intense.
It is. And it makes you wonder, right, like, the world is literally falling apart. We're talking earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, you name it, it's happening. Is it just a coincidence? Or is there, like, some connection between his tyranny and, like, the whole natural world just going haywire?
Right. It's like, is the universe itself rebelling against this guy?
Whoa. I never thought of it like that. But, okay, hold on. It's not all doom and gloom. We've got this crew, the Nova crew. They're stepping up to try and save the day.
Yeah, our heroes.
Totally. So we got Florian, our botanist, who, fun fact, loves his weed.
Of course. It wouldn't be a deep dive without some quirky characters.
You know it. And then there's Karina. She's, like, all about that rave life and magic. And she's got a thing for psychedelic mushrooms, too.
Naturally.
Right. And let's not forget Sanja, our strictly vegan engineer.
Yeah.
She brings a whole other kind of intensity to the team.
Definitely. And then we got Christian, our ex-military tech whiz. He's basically a cyborg.
I know. It's amazing.
It's almost comical, right? This, like, ragtag bunch of, let's just say, unique individuals.
So that's a good way to put it. And they're the ones humanity's counting on to stop the apocalypse.
No pressure or anything.
Talk about high stakes. So their mission, nothing less than planting a bomb in the sun.
Yeah, to try and stop it from going supernova and taking the Earth with it.
Exactly. It's a pretty crazy plan. But here's the kicker. They fail. Earth is destroyed. And it seems like the blame falls on, well, Florian.
Yeah, he was a little too high and forgot to program the bomb correctly.
You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
So is it as simple as Florian messed up, end of story? Or is there, like, a deeper message here?
It's a good question. Because think about it. This whole world is kind of built on recklessness, starting with Graf Paste himself. Is Florian's mistake just a reflection of that?
That's a really interesting point. Like, his personal mistake is, like, a symbol of this bigger societal failure.
Exactly. And then we got the rap lyrics.
Oh, yeah. In O2. Dosecru and Paste Pasta, right?
Yeah, that one. You go from this intense description of, the world ending, then boom, these hard-hitting rap verses.
I know. It's like whiplash, all this anger and rebellion and pain.
What's fascinating to me is, like, it almost feels like this counter-narrative, like a hidden voice crying out from the underground.
Wow. Okay, so we got this tyrannical ruler, wrecked planet, a crew of, let's say, interesting heroes who try to save the day but fail. But then there's these rap lyrics, and they're hinting at something more, something deeper. I'm not sure where to even start.
Well, I think Tyrannenhand is the key. It's like the backbone of this whole saga. And within it, we find, like, the essence of each character, their motivations, their struggles, their, shared fate.
Right. So the lyrics are like these little windows into their souls.
Exactly. They're like these portraits painted against the backdrop of the apocalypse.
Okay, I'm officially intrigued. Let's break it down. What did these lyrics tell us about these doomed heroes and this totally messed up world?
All right, let's start with Florian, our weed-loving botanist. There's this line, Im Nebel des Gras zwischen Sternen versteckt, vergisst die Ruth, doch sein Herz ist echt, so echt.
What does that even mean?
Well, it paints this picture of him being lost, literally and figuratively, right? Like, he's in a haze, but he's still driven by this genuine desire to do good.
Oh, I see. Like, he's trying to escape reality, but still wants to help.
Yeah, it's kind of tragic, really.
It is. Okay, what about Karina, our psychedelic space witch?
Ah, Karina. The lyrics describe her as Die Hexe der Goa, ihre Magie vollbracht, beschwört sie den Blitz mit Pilz in der Hand, ihrer Hand.
Okay, she's powerful.
Oh, yeah, very much so. But she's also embracing a different kind of reality, fueled by, magic and altered perceptions.
So she's chosen to see the world differently.
It seems that way. And it makes you wonder, is her reality truly distorted, or is it just a different way of seeing things?
Whoa, mind blown. Okay, so we got Florian struggling with his own internal haze, and Karina who's chosen to, like, embrace her own unique reality. What about Sanja, our nature-loving vegan engineer? What's her deal?
Well, the lyrics say, Die Elfe der Flora, mit Wissen so reif, pflanzt Samen der Freiheit in Tyrannenreich.
Seeds of freedom. I like that. So she's like this force of nature fighting for like something good even in this terrible world.
Precisely. She represents the resilience of nature, the hope that even in darkness, something can still grow.
That's actually really beautiful.
It is. And then we have Christian, our cyborg. He's described as mit Silikonhaut und Stahl in den Venen hackt die Sonne Grenzen erscheinen.
So he's like the ultimate tech guy.
Yeah, he's pushing the boundaries of what's possible with technology, but the lyrics also highlight this tension, this duality in his nature.
Duality. How so?
Well, he's this fusion of flesh and machine, but he's also driven by this desire to save humanity. He's straddling this line between what's natural and what's artificial, and by hacking the sun, he might be crossing a line.
Right, right. Okay, so we got these four incredibly different people, each with their own, like, quirks and flaws and strengths, and they're all thrown together in this desperate attempt to save a doomed world ruled by this tyrant.
It's a recipe for disaster, right?
It really is. But the lyrics, they hint at something more than just their individual stories, like they're part of something bigger.
Exactly. There's this shift in the lyrics, this moment where they unite. Zusammen vereint, trotzen sie dem Grauen. Sie stehen fest.
Wow. United against the gray. So their individual struggles become this collective effort.
Precisely. And that's where we'll pick up in part 2 of this deep dive.
All right, I can't wait.
So we left off with this image of the Nova crew, right? All united against like graph paste and his whole tyrannical thing. And it's here that Tyrannenhand really gets going, It captures that energy of their mission.
Oh, yeah, totally. The lyrics are like this driving force. It's all Rakete am Start, zündet die Triebwerke voll, so das All, sie rasen in das Licht, so toll, so hell. It's like pure action.
Yeah.
Going for it, even though everything's about to go boom.
Exactly. It's like you can feel that rush, that urgency as they're like flying towards the sun. But even then there's this like tension, right? This sense that something bad's going to happen.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
The lyrics even say, Streit unterbrochen, jetzt zählt nur das Ziel, dieses Ziel. Der Countdown läuft, nur die Hoffnung spielt mit. It's like, we know it's not going to end well.
Yeah, it's like that calm before the storm, and then, well, everything goes wrong.
Der Fehler klar vor Florians Blick, verschwommene Sicht. Das Team, die Rakete, von der Schockwelle, verrückt, zerrissen, verbrannt. It's like, that's it. Hope's gone. The world's ending.
It's a brutal shift. And the language really reflects that, It gets so raw, so visceral, like, Weltende Naht der Tod, ein Verrat Florienhai, des Schicksals schwerste Last. Die Last. That's heavy stuff.
It's like the weight of the whole world, like, literally collapses on them. But I'm curious, going back to those rap lyrics in O2, Duzakru and Paste Pasta, do they, like, reflect this sense of failure, of despair?
That's a good question. And it's interesting because, well, O2, Dosakru and Paste Pasta, doesn't directly talk about the mission failing, But it does show how angry and frustrated everyone is living on a graph paste rule. There's this line, Unti dem Joch der Macht, verstummt der Gesang, nur der Bass dröhnt laut, ein letzter Klang.
It's like the music itself is rebelling.
Yeah, it's like this last scream of defiance, right? Before everything goes silent. Okay, let's talk more about Graph Paste. We know he's a tyrant. He's wrecked the planet. But 00 Paste also hints at why he does what he does. Right. Like, what's his deal?
That's a great point. And that's what makes this whole story so interesting. 00 Paste doesn't, like, dive deep into his head or anything. But it does paint this picture of him being totally driven by ambition, by this need for power and wealth and fame. But he doesn't care who he hurts along the way. He's completely apathetic. It's kind of creepy, right? Like he's just totally detached from like everyone and everything. And it makes me wonder, is that why the universe is like falling apart around him? Is it reacting to his apathy?
That's a really interesting theory. Like, is there this connection between what people do, especially those in power, and how the world reacts?
Whoa, that's deep. But let's get back to Tyrannenhand for a sec. We're talking about how those lyrics describe each member of the Nova crew. We talked about Florian and Karina. But what about Sanja and Christian? How do they fit in?
Okay, so with Sanja, the lyrics really focus on her connection to nature. It's all about, in ihrem Wald, da hat sie die Macht. She's not about technology or force, it's about understanding and respecting the natural world. Even when everything's falling apart, she represents hope, like the power of life to keep going.
It's like she's the opposite of graph paste, right?
Yeah.
She cares, he doesn't. And even with all this destruction, there's still beauty and, resilience.
Mhm.
Okay, what about Christian? He seems pretty different.
Yeah, Christian's a fascinating character. He's the cyborg, right? Part human, part machine, but he still wants to save humanity. The lyrics are really interesting. Ein Cyborg-Soda, der nie schläft. Mit Silikonhaut und Stahl in den Venen hakt, die Sonne Grenzen erscheinen. He's pushing boundaries, but is he going too far?
Yeah, that's a good question. Could his, detachment, his need to control everything actually be making things worse?
Right, and that brings us to this bigger theme that runs through the whole story, responsibility. The Nova crew, they meant well, but they failed. And it wasn't just because of one mistake. It was because of, deeper issues, flaws in their world.
So we end up with this tragedy, right? This world destroyed by its own chaos and this ruler who just doesn't care. But Tyrannenhand, it also shows hope, rebellion, the power of nature and people to, keep going. It's not a simple story.
Exactly. And in the last part of this deep dive, we're going to explore what happens next, after the apocalypse. What questions are left? And can there be hope, even when everything's gone?
Okay, I'm definitely ready for part 3. All right, so we've been through a lot. This world about to explode. The Nova crew, graph paste and his, tyranny, Earth's gone, boom. But Tyrannenhand doesn't just leave us there, right? In the ashes. There's more to it.
Yeah, definitely. It's not just about the destruction. It's about what comes after, what it all means. Remember that line about Sanja, planting seeds of freedom? Pflanzt Samen der Freiheit in Tyrannenreich, even with graph paste and everything. What do you think that means?
It's like, even though everything's gone, there's still this, little spark of hope
Right.
that maybe somehow, somewhere, something survived. Or maybe it's more about, their fight,
Yeah.
That even though they failed, maybe it inspired something, like a new start.
Exactly. Tyrannenhand works on so many levels, right? So you have Sanja literally planting seeds, showing her connection to nature, her defiance. But it's also about this idea of rebirth, that even after everything's destroyed, there's potential for something new.
It's like their mission failed, but maybe their ideals, their fight, didn't completely disappear. But what about those rap lyrics? In O2, Doza Crew and Paste Pasta, they're all about rebellion against graph paste. Do they say anything about what comes after? The apocalypse, I mean.
It's interesting. The rap lyrics, they focus on anger and pain, yeah. But
Okay.
they also talk about the strength of the human spirit. That line, Aus den Trümmern der Stille erhebt sich der Klang, ein Echo der Hoffnung, starke und Verlang. Like even in silence, even in the rubble, there's still hope.
Even when the world's gone, people still want something better. But the Nova crew, they were fighting for something. What happens to that fight when there's no one left to fight for?
Yeah, that's the big question. And I think Tyrannenhand wants us to think about that. Did their struggle, their sacrifice mean anything? Or was it all for nothing?
It's a tough question. Makes you think about what it means to be a hero, to sacrifice yourself for something, even if you might lose. And honestly, it makes me think about our world too. The problems we have, the choices we make. What can we learn from the Nova crew, even though their world ended?
That's why we love these deep dives, right? It's not just a story. It makes us think about the big questions, Our values, what we believe in. Maybe there isn't one right answer, but it's the journey that matters. Trying to figure it out.
So I guess the question I'm left with is, if we were the Nova crew, facing this impossible problem, knowing we might fail, would we still fight? And what are we doing now, in our world, to fight for something better, even with all the chaos?
Those are some great questions, and I think they're the perfect way to end this deep dive. We encourage you, our listeners, to think about these things, explore Tyrannenhand, read those other documents, and come to your own conclusions, because the best discoveries come from that journey, from really digging in and figuring things out for yourself.
And that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored the world of graph paste and the Nova crew. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep fighting for what you believe in.